G'day and welcome to my channel. Just before we start this video, it's probably the last thing you want to hear, but just before we start this video, the last year or two when I've been reviewing products, I've been trying to make sure I've used them for several months before I do my final review. I used to be one of those reviewers that would rush out as soon as I got a product and try and get it out there and show everyone. But I don't think that gives an accurate description, and I can't possibly give you an honest review without some usage, you know, whether it be several weeks, even better several months. And anybody that's been here for a while would have seen this box appear in other videos and be around in the background for several months now. There's been some really great things about this product, and there's been some issues too. I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to come out and say everything's rosy. So we'll see the unboxing and then we'll get to where I found issues at a later date. Some of this video was recorded months ago, some of this video was recorded yesterday, and a few spots in between. Why did it take so long? Well, I've got back in contact with suppliers and manufacturers to try and figure out if it was me that was having the issue. I've also contacted other YouTubers because some of these issues, I've seen all these people do these fancy reviews of this equipment and none of them have mentioned these issues. Some have danced around it, but I don't think that's good enough. They're just trying to sell the stuff. I'd like you to use my links and buy it too, but I want to give you an honest review. Upon going through my footage, I've just seen that there's way too much to fit into one video. So there will be an unboxing and a brief talk of maybe some of the problems. There'll be a whole usage video and then some of the upgrades I've done to make my life a bit easier. G'day and welcome to my brewery. Today we are looking at the Brewbuilt jacketed X3 Unitank. I'm really excited about this one. The Brewbuilt tanks, so far, up to the Gen 2, which I have been the best tanks I've ever used. They're easily the best finished and the best built. Let's have a look at this one. Look at that. These are fancy. Already I can see a few differences. The legs are definitely different. Instead of going straight down, they're sprayed out a bit, give you a bit more room to work underneath and also make it more stable. While it still has the same ports on the front, it's got a 2-inch port on the side. You might have seen one of my other videos where I fitted an element to one of these ports, but I had to use this big adapter. Now I don't have to do that. I can put an element straight in there. Also has the 2 ports for the glycol chilling because it is jacketed. You'd preferably not use this in a fridge. You still could, and I have done that before with my other one, but because of the jacketed, it's an air gap, so it's sort of insulated. If you're going to use it in the fridge, you wouldn't cover these, so you get a bit more temperature flow in and out. Has a nice big 3-inch dump port. That's huge. That's bigger than you see on most of the commercial systems that might be a 50 tank or something. But that's really good for what we're going to use it for. If you were actually dumping yeast out of this, like using elbows, that'd probably be too big. But because we're using a collection jar, which is going to fit that perfectly, that is perfect. The other big difference is on top. So that's an 8-inch port, and you close and seal it with a tri-clamp, which is great. Tri-clamps can't actually get much bigger than this under pressure for safety reasons and regulations. But this is a good size. Plenty big enough to get your hand in and have a clean if that's the way you want to do it. And much easier to seal than messing around with the V-clamps. Now I never had much trouble with the Brewbuilt V-clamps, but on other models and different brands, I had so much trouble that I ended up selling the fermenters. That wasn't on every other brand V-clamp, but several of them were really bad. So much so that I would make sure that was sealed first. It might take 5 or 6 goes on some, maybe even more on some of the models I had. And you'd make sure the V-clamp lid was sealed, and then you wouldn't take it off again. You'd sanitize it while that was sealed, and you'd fill through a different port, and you wouldn't take that off again until you were cleaning, which worked totally fine. But if there was any reason that you ever wanted to take that off, that's when it was a problem, because you might not get it to seal easily when you want to get it sealed up nice and fast. This gets rid of that problem. But I will say again, I haven't had that problem with the other models of Brewbuilt. I've had the Gen 1 and the Gen 2 and both my models sealed fine. I'm keeping my Gen 2, I'm not getting rid of it. While it's laying down like this, I might put the feet on it. That's some silicone hose. So there is the lid. I'll say it again, when you take these off, keep them. They're really handy if you ever want to store these things and stop dust and whatever getting inside it. And always pop them back on. Even if you were filling it and you wanted to go and do something before putting the lid on, grab your yeast or something, you can just sanitize it and put it over the top. That is beautiful. All the Brewbuilt stuff is really well finished. So there we have what looks like a 4-inch port. Now you got plenty of room. I can still use my tops I used to use on my other fermenters, the 4-inch tops. And plus I got 2 extra ports and a PRV valve. It's the valve for the bottom. What I was really looking for, the feet. I realise sometimes when people look at these vessels, they think, wow, that's expensive. But the quality of these fittings, you can't get any better. There's got to be a kilo just in that valve of weight, stainless steel. There's the large 8-inch tri-clamp. So I just unwrapped all these fittings. Most of them are just the clamps. Of course you have all the size clamps you need. Thermo well. And a bunch of end caps. If you don't want to use all those ports, you can just close them off. And a sample port, a valve, a tap, whatever you want to call it. Also comes for a fitting which can be used for a blow-off tube if you don't want to use pressure and just use it like a normal fermenter. That's a blow-off tube fitting. You just put the silicone hose on there and put it into a jar of sanitizer or something. This particular kit comes with the Firmzilla collection chamber, 3-inch top, fits directly on the bottom of that valve. This is the 4-inch lid that goes into the other lid. You screw your bore lock posts on here, and you can put a spunding valve if you like, and your floating dip tube in the other one, whatever you like. And last but not least, I also got a jacket for it. Even though this is jacketed and kind of insulated like I mentioned before, the cone at the bottom isn't. And also, when you've got glycol, if you're starting to use glycol for the first time, you'll realise it's very, very cold and you'll get a lot of condensation on there. Something like this does help to stop it. I'm going to put this together and we'll come back and have a look at it. Now I'm going to take this apart and clean it properly. So first I'm going to put it together without this, just so you can see what it looks like. And then later on when I take it apart and clean it, I'll put this back on. Tri-clamps are one of those things I tell people to be careful what you wish for. Everyone wants to move on to them because they look easy and they're easy to seal. Yeah, they're easy to seal. Yes, they're easy to clean. But if you're in a hurry and something's going wrong, you've got Buckleys are doing one up fast. It's always tricky. You got to try and get the seal seated properly, get everything in line, or it's just not going to go together. It doesn't matter how many times you've done it, they'll catch you out. This table is so handy, so handy. Yeah, this seal will take a little while to just get used to not being curled up in the packet. A little bit fiddly at first. After you've used it once, or you've got it in here and you've had some hot water in or something, it should settle down. And you could even use a bit of keg lube to seat it in place while you're just getting it there. Tricky little thing. Now this went on for some time. You want to make sure it's seated properly because you don't want to ruin it. You'll pinch it and could break it if it's not, and that's not. We're nearly there. Come on. This is a pain. See, careful what you wish for sometimes. Aha, push it from the inside. Didn't think about that. I can still get my hand in there. Come on, that's got to be close. Why isn't it going in? As I said, I don't want to sugarcoat anything. This went on for some time. Some of this footage I've sped up 4 times the speed, some of this footage I've sped up 6 times the speed, and I've cut some of it out, just for the sake of shortening the video. But I wanted to leave enough in so you could really see what happened. I ordered another seal, just in case my seal was faulty or something had happened to it, and the problem still didn't go away. Don't tell anyone that took me 3 hours. So either at the end of this video, or in the next video I put out, depending how long this ends up being, I'll show you what I did to fix the problem. The amount of blood I shed for these videos is getting out of control. And this didn't just happen to me. A few other YouTubers I spoke to had the exact same problem. Is it a deal breaker for the fermenter? By no way is it a deal breaker, but it's definitely not perfect. This is where you could put a blow-off tube if you wanted. You could put it up here. There's so many ports. I don't know what to do with them all. I will eventually put a pressure gauge on one of these. Oh, and actually I do have a triclover pressure relief vacuum valve. When you look at these you think, wow, they're expensive. But these are a pressure relief valve one way and the other way. So if you go into a vacuum, which is bad for these because they'll implode, it can let gas in. Now that sounds awful, but you know, when you're using pressure vessels, if you're not switched on, you're going to get into all sorts of trouble. So these are a good thing. One more. Now, you know what I've just noticed, which is really handy. If you've ever used these floating dip tubes, which I suggest you do, you've only usually got like short little gas post lines on the inside to try and attach your pickup tube to. Your float and cage goes under the end of that, which you have to cut to length. And then through your lid, you have these, and usually you have a little gas tube, and by the time you get the post on, it's only sticking out by maybe 1/4 of an inch sometimes, so you can really struggle. I've noticed, which is a great idea, they've put in, I don't know, it's about 3 inches long, so even when that's all attached in the lid and everything, you got a nice little bit of space there to, 1, to get it on and off, and 2, if ever you wanted to clamp. I have used, the silicon's been a bit loose, or you've got sanitizer on there and it's sliding on off, and you're scared that, you know, if you put the pressure on wrong or something, then you might blow it off. I have had and have bought, it's over there in the drawer somewhere, some really fine stainless steel wire. So on one that used to get loose, I used to do it up like a bag tie, wrap around a couple of times, give it a twist, and when I'm going to get off, I just cut it off and throw it away. Yeah, you use a couple inches of it, but that's a tip. Yeah, it saves using some sort of expensive stainless steel clamp. And a lot of those clamps aren't real good. You don't want them in the wood. By the time they've had cleaner on them, sometimes it gets stuck and they can corrode. Sometimes I think sometimes they use some parts that aren't entirely stainless steel, or not very good quality stainless steel. So it's hard. You don't go and pick a random hose clamp, even though it says stainless on the box, to use, because maybe the band's stainless, but then the screw won't be, there'll be something in there that often corrodes in chemicals. Not always, but it's something to think about. These fermenters really are a thing of beauty. If you can afford one, grab one. You won't look back. I didn't just kiss it, I kissed it on a port. Ew, hope you're clean. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share and all that. If you haven't had a chance to check out my Patreon yet, go and have a look. There's hundreds of videos in there of me talking stuff, and you would have already seen the longer version of this, where I've cut my hand, swore, done things like that. Big thank you to my patrons, for without them, these videos couldn't continue. And thanks for Kegland for sending this out for me for review. Muchly appreciated. This is not a paid review at all. These are my words, my thoughts, like always. Take it easy. I'll see you in the next one. Now I need another 2, 3. We need a bigger boat. All right, I thought I'd pull out my Gen 2 one just to show a size comparison. So the new one sits down a bit lower. Not much, but a little bit lower. That's why this one looks taller. But in the end, by the time if I was to put a pressure relief valve or something up here, this one would be a little bit higher. Depends what fittings I use and things. And of course it's wider because of the legs. You can see this has got a wider port at the bottom. It might be a bit hard to see. I wouldn't say this if I didn't mean it. They're a bloody great fermenter. And if I got to choose which one I wanted on the marketplace at the moment in Australia, I'd pick a Brewbuilt. By far. I guess we could take this further. All right, here's another comparison. I might have to undo that too. Got any pressure in it? Oh, that smelled beautiful. Got some hops in that one. So there you go. There's a size comparison with the Firmzilla there too. That's a Gen 3 Firmzilla. And as you can probably see, that's nearly as tall. With the hot bong, you know, it'll be up here, probably taller. But I don't leave the hot bong attached anyway. And it goes on when I dry hop and then I take it off again. That's the new one. X3, X2, Gen 3.